Sige, sabi mo eh. Sir, good evening. Ah, ready na ba? Pwede na.
Good evening.
Okay, good evening, sir. Sir, anong inaasahan ng mamamayan ngayong after the London and today sa investment? How much ang magiging, sabi na nating hakutin ng Pangulo para sa
Okay,
Pilipinas?
well, dun sa London, no, nakakuha tayo ng about $1.03 billion in investment commitments. I think I gave you the breakdown. Well, I gave your colleagues the breakdown in London. I can get that a little bit later. Do we have it? Yan, bigay ko sa inyo. Anyway, dito sa US, there were two business meetings this morning, no? Let me just get the notes. You know that the president is very keen on knowledge-based investments in the country. And there's a company called Underwriters Laboratories, Inc. It's an American company that is investing in a global technology research center in Metro Manila that will support the company's operations around the world by conducting global standards and industry research covering a wide range of consumer products. This is one of those knowledge-based things that the company is setting up in the Philippines so that it can do analysis and standards evaluation for its products. So it's not a large investment in terms of the actual dollar amounts, but it's one of those knowledge-based investments that we hope will result in some kind of knowledge transfer to local workers. Yung isa po is it's a company called GN Power Limited. They're going to put up 300 megawatt coal plants in Bataan using coal combustion technology. These two plants are estimated to cost about $1 billion US. They should be in place by 2015. $1 billion US. They should be operational by about 2015. Yeah, it takes roughly 3 years to build a power plant, no? So we're looking at 2015 as the date, the year. Yeah. So yun, Leo, yung mga investments na nakuha natin, no, dito sa pagpunta natin sa US at sa Citigroup is tomorrow. I'm not allowed to announce anything until after the meeting, but I can send you some word after tomorrow about what the Citigroup meeting is about. Hi, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, talking points tomorrow, Obama.
You know, I think the president mentioned it when he spoke to your colleagues in London. No, given the context of what's happening in Bajo de Masinloc, you cannot avoid discussing that to some degree. There are two things that are happening in recent years that the Philippines and the United States are going to be in extensive discussions about. Number one, as you all know, the United States has made what they call a strategic rebalancing. They're moving their forces into Asia. They want to have a larger presence in the Asia-Pacific region because this is where the economic and political center of the world, they say, will shift in the coming decades. So the United States feels it's in their national interest to be more actively engaged in this part, in our part of the world. Add to that our own strategic decision to build what we call a minimum credible deterrent capacity. What does that mean? You all know that over the decades, our military capability, particularly our naval capability, has fallen behind that of our neighbors to the point where we may not have what you call a minimum credible deterrent. So we have decided when the president came into office, he decided that we should begin the process of building that credible military deterrent. History shows you that weakness invites aggression. And the more we have an ability to defend ourselves, the less we'll be subject to acts of aggression by anybody. And so, nagkataon na nangyari ito at the same time, no? So, given those strategic directions of both our governments, we are looking at ways to enhance our cooperation to our mutual benefit on the security side. That's going to be a large focus of the discussions. The other thing, of course, is the economic cooperation. No? I- when the U.S. says it's rebalancing, it doesn't mean that just in the context of defense and security. It also means that in the context of the economy. In that room over there were many people who represent companies who have invested already in the Philippines or who are thinking very seriously about investing in the Philippines. They were brought together with their colleagues from the Philippine business community, and we hope that out of all of this comes more commerce, bilateral commerce between our two countries. So those will be the basic topics discussed with President Obama as well.
Do we expect any commitments from the U.S. or yun na yun, yung mga in the past?
Well, I don't know if we're going to announce any specific commitments tomorrow, but there are ongoing discussions between the two countries, both on the economic and the security fronts.
Question.
Will the President specifically take up the nitty-gritty of these credible defense needs? Our military have made requests about what they really want.
Yes, those
Is he
things will
going
be
to-
discussed.
Is he going to mention that to President Obama? Will he also mention the fact that we have complained that the ships that they've given us are not fully armed? Are these things going to come up in
Number one, we have not complained that they're not fully armed. We knew what we were getting when we got them, so there's no complaint there. We do have requests for additional equipment and similar ships with additional capabilities, and all of this will be discussed. The need for more hardware, I don't know how specific he will get because we don't have a lot of time, but certainly the broad strokes of what we need will be brought up.
Sir, can you categorically say that the Philippines has already shifted from mere counterterrorism and counterinsurgency to the so-called territorial defense?
No, I don't think we can categorically say we've shifted. There are still terrorist-related threats that exist in and around the Philippines. So we cannot shift away from that. That is
Or a
an
combination?
ongoing. Yeah, that's an ongoing thing. But certainly the thrust in the last year and a half has been external defense. As you can see, you look at what we're acquiring and what we want to acquire, these are things that will allow us to guard our shores more effectively and to defend our territory more effectively. But I want to emphasize that we are not shifting from one to the other. We cannot take our eye off the ball when it comes to the terrorist threats that continue to exist, not just in the Philippines, but around the region. And so both initiatives will proceed.
Yes, but are we going to depend on the U.S. alone with regards to not shifting but adding territorial defense as
No,
part of it?
no. We have many partners who have common cause with us. The United States is one of them. And what we've learned from history is at the end of the day, the Philippines has to rely on itself. To the extent that the interests of countries like the United States and Vietnam and Australia and other friends coincide with ours, then we can work with each other. But ultimately, this is something that we have to do for ourselves. So we will be working with and receiving assistance and providing assistance to countries who are very friendly with us, who we have good relations with. But it's not going to be limited to one country.
So are you referring to countries that have signed a treaty of amity and cooperation with ASEAN, like?
No, not necessarily. There's the ASEAN mode, and that covers one aspect of it, but there are also bilateral agreements that we have with other countries that also will enhance our defense. So we're not really just talking about countries that have signed that treaty with ASEAN.
Mr. Secretary, could you describe, maybe in broad strokes, what this minimum credible deterrent looks like, perhaps in terms of hardware?
Not in terms of hardware.
Or capability.
Let me explain it in terms of concept. Okay? If you are someone, let's put it this way. If you own a house, okay, and you have certain amount of riches in that house, if thieves know that you have absolutely no way of defending your house, then you can be perfectly sure that someone is going to come in and break in and steal your stuff. If you have um, all the defense in the world, the alarms, the dogs, the motion sensors, then you're effectively protecting your house from any kind of threat. Okay? Now, sorry, I'm using an analogy to try to simplify it. I hope it helps. If it doesn't, then we can talk about it in more specific terms. Yeah, but here's what I'm saying. We're a small country. We have limited financial and economic resources. We cannot build the fortress that we ultimately would want ideally. We're not going to be able to realistically develop the kind of arsenal that a great world power has. So what can we try to do? We can build a minimum defense capability. What does that mean? Meaning if someone thinks they want to attack us, then we may not be able to hold them off forever, but we can make it very costly for them, economically, militarily, politically. So that's what we mean when we say minimum deterrent capability. If, again, using the analogy of the house, you may not be able to fully defend your house and afford all the best defenses, but you can build enough defenses so that they will have second thoughts about trying to rob your house.
But in real terms, what will that look like, broadly? More of what?
No, we're not referring specifically to bases. I think we've said that many times, no? The kind of basing arrangements that we had with the United States prior to 1992, those big permanent types of bases, are not on the table. Number one, it's no longer allowed by our Constitution. Number two, if you look at the American footprint, the way that they want to, the way they want to deploy it, it's no longer in that way. So what they've got is, what they want is access. No, let me repeat that. There are no basing rights. We're not talking about basing the way Subic was a base or Clark was a base. The American strategy is different. The Constitution does not allow that. We're not contemplating that. What we're looking at is a lot more mobile, a lot less permanent, and probably a lot more frequent than what we have now. I'm not a defense configuration expert, so I can't give you too much of the specifics of that. But let me just say it's not basing the way we envisioned it before. There will be rotations, yes.
But I understand it will be based on only with the military exercises that American planes and ships
I'm not
will
sure.
be allowed in.
I'm not sure if that's how it's going to work out. Yes, but I'm not sure about whether it will only happen at certain specific times. You're saying only during.
Somebody from the defense ministry said that only during
I'm not aware of.
military exercises will
Yeah.
they be allowed.
I'm not aware of that, and I would not be able to confirm that.
Is there an ongoing agreement? I mean, discussions with regards to
Yes.
this kind of arrangement?
There are ongoing discussions.
When did it start?
They started. I don't know exactly when they started, but they've been ongoing for at least several months.
So what to you is a realistic expectation of the kind of expanded military assistance that we could get?
What are my realistic?
What could be the realistic expectation from you? I mean, to you, what is a realistic expectation of what we're going to get in terms of expanded military assistance?
Well, I can only speak conceptually, no? I can't say we need X number of this type of plane or X number of this type of chopper or this kind of boat. But we need surveillance equipment. We need the ability to patrol our shores. We need the ability to create what I said was a minimum deterrent. And we don't necessarily need to get that from one country. Sorry, again, a lot of the questions would probably require someone from the armed forces or the Navy to be able to ask to answer more specifically. Actually, what we're looking at is not just the West Philippine Sea. We need to be able to monitor our shores, not just for foreign sea craft. we also need that kind of monitoring ability for weather patterns. And so we're not really just talking about West Philippine Sea, we're talking about down south, on the Sulu Sea, we're talking along the eastern seaboard, and even up north, the coast of Luzon.
Is this equipment, the surveillance equipment, part of the military assistance that will be pledged by the U.S.?
I don't know.
Will the President bring up his Save the Industries plan?
I'm not sure if the president himself will bring it up in the meeting with President Obama, but our Trade Department has had discussions with their counterparts today, and I expect that that was brought up. So it's being discussed in detail on the ministerial level. The president may or may not bring it up in general terms tomorrow with President Obama.
Sir, good evening. China has been consistent in saying that the issue in Scarborough and even with this Spratly should be limited within China and the Philippines. Are we sure, are we confident that this will not, the meeting, the bring up with the President Obama of the issue will not escalate and further provoke the China with this tension?
We have no intention of provoking or escalating this conflict, but we have an obligation to the Filipino people to be able to defend ourselves. And we will take action based on what is in our interest and not because one country or another feels it might escalate things. We have told everybody this in ASEAN summits, every chance we have. If you look at the kind of defense posture that we are developing, it is precisely that. All the equipment that we're trying to acquire, all the capabilities that we're trying to enhance are meant for our defense. We are not trying to develop any offensive capability, and we never have. So that should put to rest concerns that other countries might have about our intentions.
If China is listening, what should be the message we are trying to deliver?
The message that we're trying to deliver is that we can resolve our differences peacefully. I think that's it. But in order for us to resolve our differences peacefully, we must also be able to protect what is ours.
So related to that, I think the key message since yung UK visit niya was to adhere to a rules-based approach and keep it to ASEAN and all that. If we're focusing,
To adhere to a rules-based approach, yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
are we limiting, di ba may binabanggit din na ASEAN na dapat nandun yung mechanism and to limit the conflict or at least the discussions doon and yung bilateral between China and Philippines. So why is he in the United States?
Okay, ganito yan, who wants it to be purely bilateral? China. Okay? Ang position ng ASEAN is that with regard to Spratlys and disputed territories, dapat mag-usap muna tayo, tayong apat na claimants sa ASEAN, come up with a common position, dun natin kakausapin ng China. Okay? So, that's always been the plan. It's not just us who say this. All four claimants in the ASEAN region have the same position. And that was reinforced in Phnom Penh when the president went there to talk to his ASEAN counterparts. So, mag-uusap muna tayo dapat, tayong apat, bago tayo kumausap ng ibang bansa na claimant din ng Spratlys. That has been the template that we've been following as far as the Spratlys is concerned. Let me just clarify, because I was at the World Economic Forum last week, and I participated in a discussion about South China Sea. And this gets lost in the discussion overseas. And tayo mga Pilipino, sometimes even sa atin, we fail to make this distinction. No? But let me make the distinction between the Spratlys, what we know as Kalayaan. Disputed po yan. We acknowledge that there are other disputes, other claims to the Spratly Islands. We adhere to a code of conduct where we take no provocative actions with regard to the Spratlys. We are not exploring for oil or gas or taking any kind of provocative actions in the Spratlys. But let's remember this because it gets lost overseas. And siguro sa atin, we also have to remember Scarborough Shoal, Bajo de Masinloc, and Recto Bank.
As well as the rest of the other countries, including the four contending countries like the Philippines and the others, would be able to share in the fruits of the sea. Like the Chinese are growing so far as food is concerned, and
Yeah,
apparently
yeah.
fishing, there is a dire need for
Yeah.
fishing, etc., and all that. So there is this move, apparently, to desist from a more confrontational, militaristic kind of view and on a bilateral basis or multilateral basis, but precisely for China to take the initiative to pulong-pulong with the rest of the countries involved, to see this vision of cooperating so that they could all benefit from fishing as well as whatever are the treasures of the sea.
We welcome
that
any
you
initiative
are-
like that, as long as it respects Philippine territory and sovereignty.
But my point is that being considered sort of by the Philippines so far as think tanks, so far as the
Yes.
research, so far as future
Yes.
policy changes?
It is being considered, and again, the condition has to be that Philippine sovereignty and Philippine territory is respected. We have always been open to sharing what you call the wealth of the seas, or whatever resources in this area exist. We've always been open to that, but the condition has always been it must be done in a way that respects Philippine sovereignty and Philippine territory.
Sir, question. Can we go back to you mentioned something that discussions are ongoing for several months, and can you give more or less a title to the kind of agreement, to the kind of so-called agreement that's in the
Well,
offing?
there has been no agreement yet, so I can't give it a title.
Yeah, but what is being discussed?
What's being discussed is enhanced security cooperation. What the specifics of that would mean
Access.
would be access, how frequent, how much, what kind of access do they need, where do they need it, what will be given access, basically that.
Sir, the President spoke about supporting the U.S. efforts to ratify the Convention on the Law of the Seas. There's still opposition in the Senate. I'm wondering what efforts might be made here. Is he going to be speaking with some senators in the opposition, and what he can expect from the U.S. in terms of dispute resolution if the U.S. ratifies?
Well, it's interesting to note that debate has begun in this country about ratifying the Convention of the Law on the Seas, which is something that previous administrations felt would hamper American sovereignty. But if you look at the number of people who are talking about it, and look at where they're coming from, you have Senator McCain talking about it. You have Secretary Clinton talking about it. So there does seem to be some level of bipartisan support for an American ratification of the treaty. We believe that and ultimately it has to be decided by the U.S. government, but we believe that an American participation in the treaty would give us a better framework for dealing with conflicts in the region as they arise. So we're for it, as the President mentioned. But this is a decision of the United States government, and we've just noted that the discussion seems to be bipartisan in the sense that people who seem to advocate it come from both sides of the aisle.
Sir?
He received a briefing from the FBI about their capabilities. This is something that they do for foreign guests as a matter of courtesy. I have friends from other governments who have been, for example, to Britain, and they were given demonstrations of the capabilities of the SAS. So the SAS. So it's just something that governments do when they have VIP guests. So no, they wanted to show us what their capabilities were. It's more of a, how do I put it? It's something that they show to certain guests.
I understand it has one of the most sophisticated gun ranges in the world. So how did the President find it, being a gun enthusiast himself?
I don't. Well, there were a lot of firing ranges, but we didn't actually stop there. We just saw them on the way there. And I'm not in a position to comment on whether they were. I mean, they all look the same to me, Nadia. I'm not a gun expert. Huh? Hindi siya bumalik. Hindi.
On another note, were you at the Capitol Hill coffee?
Yeah.
What took place there?
You know, it was really just socials. I think most of what the two countries um, want from each other in terms of trade and defense is discussed on the ministerial level. And we got there, and again, there was nice bipartisan support. Senator McCain, Senator Lugar, Senator Kerry, Senator Warner. So you had Democrats, you had Republicans, and it was really just socials. And I think we shouldn't underestimate the value of these personal interactions between leaders, because they sometimes help make things easier to understand amongst governments. And sometimes when there are misunderstandings, it's easier to fix them when you have personal rapport with the leaders of other countries. So Nadia, there's no detail or real substance discussed. That's been done on the ministerial level and on other levels. The coffee in Capitol Hill was really just that. It was just socials with senators.
Sir?
That's being discussed on the ministerial level.
Sir, aside from the Scarborough issue, is the president also planning to raise some concerns of Filipinos working here in the U.S. in his meeting with President Obama?
I'm not sure we'll have enough time for that. There are things that are going to be discussed on the ministerial level, no? So I don't believe that is going to be discussed between the two.
Sir, dun sa, how,
Yeah.
okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sir, how else can the country take advantage of the U.S.'s strategic rebalancing in the Asian region outside security and defense?
Well, as I said, that strategic rebalancing also means getting a share, participating in what everybody seems to believe is greater economic growth in the region. If American companies do not invest here, then they're not going to be part of that growth. They won't benefit from it. So they're looking at increasing investments in our part of the world, and in particular, since we have such a long-standing relationship, also in the Philippines, also in Britain. That's what we talked about. As I said, the discussions in Britain were primarily commercial in nature, and the British were saying to us that. And everybody kept saying this, from members of parliament to Prime Minister Cameron and the business community there that we met with. They said, the future, for the foreseeable future, the future economic growth of the world is going to depend a large part on what's happening in our part of the world. And the British, who have investments all over there, want to expand their presence even more. And that's how I think when they come in and they invest, they create jobs, they create wealth for our people, and in that sense, that's one way that we can benefit, not just from the American rebalancing, but also, kasi hindi lang America ang nagre-rebalance, although they call it that, and they're the ones who are most vocal about it, but in their own ways, countries in Europe are doing their own sort of rebalancing. It's just that rebalancing is being expressed primarily in economic rather than strategic defense terms. I believe they are, but I'm not privy to what those discussions are. I wouldn't be able to give you a definite figure.
Sir, since you made a distinction between the issue in Spratlys and conflict resolutions, South China Sea, can it be very specific? Will the president raise the concern on Scarborough Shoal tomorrow when he meets with the president, with Obama?
Okay. I will tell you what I believe he will say, but I can't predict the future with 100% certainty, but no, it doesn't have to be. No, I believe it will be discussed. Hindi ka naman pwedeng pumunta dito habang may nangyayaring ganun. At yung relationship natin sa Estados Unidos ay ina-amplify natin na hindi mo pag-uusapan yung issue na yun eh. Because we're not a rich country. We cannot develop the kind of, minimum is is really what we can aspire for at this point in time. And we have other things really to spend on. No? We have We have an anti-poverty program which we're spending a lot of money on. We're a small country. You know, what we want to hope for is the minimum credible deterrent. I think that's the most realistic thing we can ask for.
Sir,
What do you mean? I think we've already told the Americans what we want, and they've told us what they want, and we're discussing that right now. Again, the U.S. rebalancing plus our own need to enhance our defense capabilities is the context in which many of these discussions have happened. When we get to the White House tomorrow, we're basically just reiterating what our ministers have already said.
Will you be disappointed if Obama does not announce any sort of
No, no.
sir,
I mean, this is an ongoing process. It doesn't stop and end with one visit. I don't expect that to be. I don't expect him to make a specific announcement like that.
Ricky, soundbite lang dun sa US Senate resolution that has been signed before the president arrived here. Does it help in our perhaps posturing?
Which resolution is this?
Yung sa MDT. Anong number yun? Yung
Sorry, I haven't seen that.
Sir, resolution calling or seeking for greater
cooperation, chuba-chuba.
With us.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
Parang reiteration ng MDT.
oh. And the question is,
How does it help in our posturing, given the context of, conflict with China and all that? Does
it helps
help at all?
because it shows that they are committed to obligations that they have to us.